All right, man, peace. You know, brothers, my pops served in the U.S. military from the late 70s all the way through the late 90s. And he engaged in a series of conflicts, the last one being the Bosnia-Herzegovina conflict in 1996-97, around that area. I think it was 97. Because while he was on deployment, he would have me record all the biggest matchups in the NBA. He wanted me to just save them because he had no idea what was going on while he was in deployment overseas. And I would save the games, and every once in a while he would write me and my sister letters from wherever he was stationed. Normally he was stationed in Germany. So one day he called us long distance and he was speaking to me and he was like, you know, we have basketball runs every day, so on and so forth. And he was like, this big, tall, skinny German kid came in and he just bust our asses in the basketball run. I was like, oh, word? He said, yeah. Big, tall, gangly, skinny-ass German kid could barely speak any English, but he was busting our ass. I said, okay, I thought nothing of it. A couple years later, we watching the NBA draft. You know, my father came home. We watching the NBA draft, and he's like, "That's him." I said, "Who? He's talking? That's the kid that bust our ass that day in the run." I said, "Dirk, Nowitzki, that's him." And I thought nothing of it because, you know, his first year in the league, Dirk was whack juice. And then all of a sudden, he just got better and better every year after his rookie year. But I never forget that because my pops told me that they played this dude because they would have basketball runs in the military. Dirk would come to the army base in Germany and he would engage in the basketball runs with a lot of the army officers there. And I mean, that's very common. I remember Michael Jordan and Charles Barkley, they went over to Germany for Nike in the mid-90s and they talked about playing Dirk. But I never forget my father told me that story. And when Dirk got drafted, his reaction, he said, "That's him. That's the guy." And Dirk Nowitzki went on to become the greatest European player in the history of the NBA. So, of course, they're going to talk about it. I'm going to chime in.
So after more than 2 decades in the league, the name Dirk Nowitzki speaks for itself. He's one of my favorite players to talk to watch, and I was thrilled to recently get the chance to do both when we sat down. We talked about his journey to the NBA, why he is still playing, what he thinks of Luka Doncic, and that memorable championship in 2011. Take a look at what one of the all-time greats had to say before you can catch him tonight against the Celtics on ESPN. Your 21st season, ahead of Kobe Bryant as the player who has played the most years with one team in NBA history.
Yeah, I mean, it's insane. Unfortunately, that time has flown by.
I mean, you've had...
It really has flown by. Once again, I remember when this dude got drafted. I remember when he first rose to prominence with Steve Nash and Michael Finley. I remember when they had that legendary Western Conference Finals in 2007. 2006 against the San Antonio Spurs. Of course, 2007 is when they won 60-plus games and lost to Golden State in the first round. But 2006, they had one of the classic Western Conference Finals that I believe went 7 games against the Spurs. And Game 7, I believe Dallas won in overtime in San Antonio, if I remember correctly.
Chances to go to other teams. You've had chances to retire. You've had a bunch of contemporaries retire. Why are you still here?
I still love to compete, even though as you get older it gets a little harder.
Stop lying, Dirk. You barely play. You just don't want to go home yet. You're not ready to sit at home with your wife and your kids yet.
Just keeping up with some of the guys that are half my age, but it's still fun.
You ain't keeping up with them. You can't make a jump shot anymore. It's time for you to sit your ass down.
Fun to try to help the franchise or the team win games. It's you know, you have to use your brain, you have to use your smarts when you lose a couple steps, but that's still fun to me. But it's definitely coming towards the end.
Yo, Dirk always running up and down the court like he's arthritic and constipated at the same time. It's like somebody stretch Dirk out and take him to the bathroom so he can take a shit.
I don't want to say this is the last year, but we'll have to see. I'm gonna approach it like it's the last, and then if it goes well, we'll see about that next summer.
First, I'm here to model our new uniform.
You have such a great sense of humor about yourself. If you do something goofy on the court, one of your old teammates who's now coaching here nickname you like a mummy for the way you move, so you do a whole skit about it. What has let you have that perspective on yourself?
I don't know. I'm a guy that always loves to have fun. You know, you can ask my teammates. I'm the first one. Even though I'm the oldest now, I always goof around. Always want to have fun. I want to keep a light atmosphere usually, because the NBA season can be a long, long grind, and I always try to make it light. Enjoy what we do.
You weren't always.
I could see Dirk becoming a coach somewhere or involved in the front office. Because for him to still be playing, even though he clearly can't play anymore, not only is he a basketball addict, he's not interested in the home life.
Always like this. You've talked a lot about how when you first came into the NBA, you were so shy and you were very self-conscious.
I think that came with English not being my first language, and I was worried to say the wrong thing, you know, if that makes sense. So I kind of said, not much.
Just being in the NBA, how scary was that idea for you when you were coming over here?
Yeah, so I wasn't sure if I was ready for it. I only weighed about 230, 235, so I was really skinny. And I wasn't sure if my body was ready for the pounding. And in my first year, there were games where I didn't play at all, where I didn't come off the bench. And then you're like, hey, maybe I should have stayed in Europe. Maybe I should have gone to college, had a bunch of offers.
Yo, once again, these are highlights from his rookie year. Dirk Nowitzki was so bad as a rookie. He was like a running joke across the NBA.
I think it's normal to let some doubts creep.
Look at that shit. I remember watching him play. I look at my dad like, that's the dude that bust y'all asses in the basketball run? Like, yes, that's him.
I don't know why this guy...
He's like, that dude could play. I don't know what's going on right now, but he could play.
This guy hasn't played better this year. Every time I see him play, he looks better than a guy that's averaging 6 points a game.
But I wanted to fight through it. I wanted to work my way through it.
Oh my goodness, what a show! Luka Doncic just put on. Luka with the fancy handles. Now that's sexy.
Luka Doncic is coming over from Europe. Different kind of player than you were in, certainly a different era. But still, how can you be helpful to him in his transition?
It's going to be interesting to see the growth in Doncic from this season to next season. Because as I tell you brothers all the time, the NBA makes such a huge deal out of these rookies. And a lot of these guys are going to be the same player for their entire career. They come into the league, they average 18 points a game as a rookie, and that's what they do for 10 years in the league.
Well, his English is already a little better than mine. I think when I first got here, he's already extremely savvy as a player, which I wasn't. He seems like he's been playing pro since he's 10 years old. The way he pretty much has, the way just he carries himself in those scrimmages. He wants the ball. He wants to make decisions with the ball. He's a great passer for his size and for his age. And so I think it's going to be fun to play with, fun to compete with.
Fun to play with? Dude, you need to retire after this season, man.
For a long, long time.
You have plenty of players come up to you now in the NBA who were born after you started playing. I grew up watching you, Dirk. What is that like?
Yeah, that's crazy. You know, to know that I can be, I'm double the age of some of these young guys that I play with.
You really go to educate your younger teammates. A lot of these guys were born in the 90s, and so.
And let me say this also about Dirk Nowitzki, because it's so common, especially for a lot of the wokey-woke dudes, to be all over the internet talking about how Larry Bird couldn't play today. If Dirk Nowitzki could dominate in the mid to late 2000s, Larry Bird would obliterate today, because Larry Bird was faster and a better athlete than Dirk ever was, than he ever was. And it's not even an athletic contest, the NBA. It's not as much of an athletic contest as people try to make it out to be, especially when you have height and range like Nowitzki and Larry Bird had. Larry Bird was a legit 6'10", even though he was listed as 6'9". Larry Bird got into a dust-up with Kareem in the 1984 finals, where Kareem kind of slapped his face or elbowed his face, and Larry Bird walked up on Kareem, and they were pretty much nose to nose. It was obvious that Kareem was taller than him, but keep in mind that Kareem is listed as 7'2". So Larry Bird is not 6'9". Larry Bird's about 6'10" and a half, and he would shoot from behind his head. Whenever you have players with that type of range, who are also that tall, and then their release is that high, there's nothing that you could do with them defensively. There's just not. There's nothing that you could do with them. I don't care how slow they are.
And so you had a 90s throwback 40th birthday party this year.
Which I dressed as myself at, which was amazing. I bought this wig, and so I styled it to what my hairstyle looked like when I was drafted. I brought my earring back. I wore a pinky ring. I wore like the wide jeans that were hot in the 90s.
Yep, those definitely were the jeans in the 90s.
I wear a super big shirt, like a quadruple X shirt. A lot of great stuff, great throwback stuff. So really enjoyed it, and glad everybody showed up and partied.
The Dallas Mavericks are NBA champions. The first title in franchise history.
There's so many highlights with you along the way through these 21 years, but the NBA Finals are always going to be sort of the big temple bookends. And with you, I mean, you have this experience. You play Miami in 2006, and we saw you so frustrated. That video of you walking down the hallway, pushing and kicking and just being so angry.
I'd be mad as hell if I was him too. Yo, people talk about the NBA wanting certain teams to win. I've never seen a player get a better whistle than Dwayne Wade got in those 06 finals. And don't get it twisted, he was dominant. He was playing at an almost Jordan level of offensive dominance. So he didn't need the help, but he damn sure got the help from the refs because he was making damn near everything. From the conference finals all the way to the NBA finals, he was just dominant, Dwayne Wade was. But the refs gave him a James Harden whistle.
And then that gets bookended with 2011, where you beat Miami. And your reaction then, you ran off the court and just started crying in the locker room before the trophy even came out.
I just started crying, and I couldn't stop myself. So I just decided, hey, get off the court, get a minute before all these cameras are right in your face. And I laid there in the back a little bit. There was a little bench there in the visiting locker room in Miami.
It was like by the showers, right?
The shower, yeah. So I laid down there. And
you were just sobbing kind of under a towel, all the emotion.
Yeah, it was just, all the things go through your mind, the hard work, all the hours, all the people that go through with you, through the stuff, up and down. It was a blur, but it was an amazing time. And I'll never forget it for the rest of my life.
And that moment, man, that championship caps off a resume among the best to ever play this game. A lock, of course, for the Hall of Fame, but...
And let me say this, just as a thought exercise. Look at Dirk Nowitzki's career stats. How many people, even with those stats, would rank him above Larry Bird in the all-time greatest player list? In the same way, you cannot use cumulative stats to put LeBron James above Michael Jordan, because Larry Bird's accolades are nowhere near these. 13-time All-Star, 12-time All-NBA. Well, you know what? I shouldn't say that, because Bird's accolades, they pretty much equal out to these, except for the career point totals, because Larry Bird was a 3-time regular season MVP. I'm not quite sure how many times he made the All-Star game. I would probably say Bird played, 13 years, so he probably made 12 All-Star games. He's probably also a 12-time All-NBA player as well. But in regards to points, Nowitzki's probably scored about 10,000 more points than Larry Bird. A little bit under 10,000 more points than Larry Bird, right around that number. Because Bird ended his career at around 21 and a half, maybe 22,000 points.
Scotty, what do you think Dirk's real legacy is going to be when he finally hangs it up?
Wow.
Dirk Nowitzki's legacy is going to be that he'll go down as one of the top 30 greatest NBA players of all time. That'll be his legacy.
He to me was one of the pioneers of really doing the pick and pop to the three-point line.
Oh, definitely. Dirk Nowitzki is, I won't say the original stretch four, because that'll probably go to a player like Bob McAdoo. But Dirk Nowitzki in the modern era, in the postmodern era, he's the person who really brought into vogue that concept of the stretch four. He really helped change the game, because it was Nowitzki in the early 2000s who became a matchup problem for many of the bigger, lumbering, dinosaur power forwards in the NBA, who could not guard him, unless you were like a Kevin Garnett or Tim Duncan. Those were pretty much the only guys who could even try to guard Dirk. Chris Webber, those type of players.
And just watching his journey, really watching a young kid come in the game who was kind of clumsy, and then just watching him develop a shot, having a shooting coach, and now playing in the NBA Finals, winning. He's just been a great pioneer player for us in our game.
And Scotty knows about Dirk. Scotty was the guy who Dirk was lighting up back in 1996 or 97. I think it was like 96 when Michael and Charles Barkley and Scotty went over to Germany for Nike. At least according to Charles Barkley, Scottie Pippen was the guy who Dirk was lighting up.
just watching his development and how he's worked and just got better and better and better. That's why he's still in the game.
Yeah.
And I'm sure that Michael, Scotty, and Charles Barkley have fun over there in Germany also. Because from what I understand, them women over there in Germany, they cannot keep their hands off a black man.
Yeah, for me, I think of as an opponent trying to scout for him, that feeling of helplessness whenever someone gets isoed at the top, you're like, well, this is basically a layup because he's going to hit that one-legged shot. And then watching that one-legged shot get taught all around the league to other bigs, whether it was...
Right, but Dirk did not invent that one-legged shot. He gets so much credit for that shot. Michael Jordan and Hakeem used to do that shot. Larry Bird used to do that shot as well, especially over the right shoulder. Right there when they're on the right side of the court, they make that turn. After they post up the defender, they make that turn over their right shoulder, and they'd fade back off the left leg. Jordan, Bird, and Hakeem used to do that shot all the time.
Guys as great as Kevin Durant or guys as regular as Ryan Anderson, they all kind of incorporated that stuff in there. And also, he's really close friends with Steve Nash, and I got to experience Dirk do Steve's eyes and stuff like that. And they have a similar story of having struggled in their first couple of years and then reached great heights, and then both eventually becoming MVPs. And so, just a great ambassador for our game, and a great, and obviously his sense of humor.
It's just second to none. The work that he put in over the course of his career is definitely the standout for me, because we talk about some of these guys like they're finished products in their first or second season. Right. They're not. If you apply yourself, you can be like Dirk.
Absolutely, because once again, Dirk Nowitzki as a rookie was the laughing stock of the NBA. He was the laughing stock of the NBA. And a lot of people do not remember that unless you go back at least 20 years watching this game.
Everyone can be like Dirk. Coming up.
But anyway, that's basically it on that. Congratulations to Dirk Nowitzki. Hopefully this will be his last season, because he can't play worth a damn anymore. He's certainly going to be a first ballot Hall of Famer. So peace.